Hey Snyder family, Merry Christmas to you. Just wanted to say, hey, I'm not in Arizona with you necessarily in person, but I am there in spirit. Tracy and I will miss you all so much. There's been a lot of friends that we've come across in Vero Beach, but very few have the significance and the number of memories that we have with you. And we thank you for allowing us to be part of your life for the last 5 years almost. I do want to just thank you for allowing me personally to be welcome into your home at any time. I knew that I could go and hit key something to get into your gate and know that I would always be welcome home there, although I might have a few cat scratches on my leg along the way. Melissa asked me to share with you a teen moment for the day. Since you're not going to be here for my last youth group, I wanted to bring youth group to you. I wanted to talk to you about my favorite Christmas story. A lot of times we hear about, in the beginning of Matthew, we hear about the wise men, and in the beginning of Luke, we hear about the shepherds, and in both we hear about the virgin birth and the innkeeper, and it is a story that we know so dear to our hearts. However, in the book of John, it doesn't begin with God being brought into the world by a virgin. It doesn't begin with God telling us that we're all come from the line of David, and that King David was Jesus' great grandfather. No, instead, we hear that in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was God, and the Word was with God. And that sticks out to me so much, because if you do go back to the very beginning of the Bible, obviously that's in the beginning of Genesis, and you begin to read the creation story, how it is interpreted in Genesis, we hear this: God spoke, and there was light. God spoke, and the world began to form. God spoke, and things began to happen. Later on in Scripture, we hear that God spoke to Moses and brought about a law for the people to follow. Later on, we see that God spoke in a whisper to Elijah and had him warn those around him that they were doing wrong things. We hear that God spoke to the prophet Isaiah and told him about a son that would be born. We hear about all the times that God spoke, and every time God spoke, it wasn't much. It probably didn't take much time at all. But every time God spoke, the world changed. And we finally see this revelation of what Isaiah was being told and what Elijah hit on a little bit when God spoke to him. And it said that when God spoke, it wasn't a sentence, it was a word. And that word was Jesus. And when God spoke Jesus, we knew how God was communicating. Now when Marian texts Zach, and when Nick texts Denise, and whenever they talk on the phone, and even when they're in the shower and they have to text one another, they just can't do it. They can't live without each other. They're using words. That is how we communicate in today's society. And so when God says it in John chapter 1, that in the beginning there was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God, he's speaking of Jesus Christ. Later on, it says that word was light. And that word was going to be the light of the world. Later on in John chapter 1, it says that. And in our life, when we begin to think about those things that happen in our lives, those small, minute moments that we pass over, they don't take that much time, but they mean so much to me. Both of you kids have gone to Montreat, and it was about a week long every single summer, but that is what sticks out to you more than anything else. This time that you're spending with your grandparents right now will probably not be that long, but you will remember this Christmas for the rest of your lives. The amount of time that we have spent together has been but 5 years long, but yet I will remember your friendship for the rest of my life. And so I ask you, what are the small things in your life that are changing the rest of history? I'd like to close with a story about a man named Joseph Chamberlain. Joseph Chamberlain was a school teacher who got drafted to join the Union Army. He was an older soldier. He got drafted to join the Union Army, and he was part of the 2nd Maine. And Joseph Chamberlain was really probably about 5th or 6th in command. And the Union Army was getting beat up on, especially the Second Maine at Gettysburg. And at Gettysburg, the Union Army was getting attacked so hard that Joseph Chamberlain's commanding officer, his commanding officer's officer, they all died, or they all went missing. They were separated from the rest of the crowd. And Joseph Chamberlain was left there with his unit. And people looked at him and said, "Joseph, what are we to do? We're surrounded by the Confederate army." And Joseph said, "Put your bayonets on the end of your gun," which are your knives. Put those knives on the end of your guns, and let's charge that hill over there. They'll not know what hit them. And so Joseph Chamberlain and the 2nd Maine put their bayonets on their guns. And as the Confederate army is closing in on them, they charge to the top of the hill. And the Confederate army sees this surprise attack from this Union army with this confidence. They thought they had them beat. The Confederate army thought they had the Union army beat at that time. And as they charge the hill, as the 2nd Maine begins to charge this hill, Confederate armies think that there is a surprise attack and that there will be more people coming, and that there are fresh Union soldiers ready to fight, not the ones that were beat down only moments ago. And so the Confederate army begins to leave and begins to split. And the rest is history, because after that, Gettysburg went to the Union, and the Union eventually wins the war because of Gettysburg. They won because of Gettysburg. And it was because of that one decision by Joseph Chamberlain that the Union Army was able to defeat the Confederacy. And had the Confederacy won that, they probably would have won the war. And we would have had 2, 3 nations right now in the United States. And we would not have had a free nation the way we think of it. And it was only because of one split-second decision by Joseph Chamberlain. And as a follower of the light, as a follower of the Word, you yourselves have everyday important decisions to make. Decisions that could change the outcome of history. So I'm asking you, what are you doing about it? What are you doing about it? Please today, this Christmas, remember the Word that is God. Remember that it was simply a small amount of time that changed darkness into light. And it was simply the birth of one man that changed history as we know it. I love you guys, and I wish you a Merry Christmas.